fun. Pulling the mic closer.
Hi. Yeah, so welcome everyone to Women's Color Code. Thank you for coming.
Thank you
for being here.
That's really loud.
Before we get started, I wanted to let you guys know that what we're going to be talking about is our own personal ideas and opinions. Nothing that we're saying represents the companies that we are a part of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sums it up.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so to start off, hi, my name is Cheyenne. I am a producer one at Walt Disney Games with a focus on 20th century properties. And
I'm Kimleigh Smith. I am an actress for television, film, and voice. So I do a bunch of video games, and that is why I'm here today.
And then I am Alissa Smith, no relation. And,
Somewhere, I'm sure, though.
Maybe, yeah. And before, just to quickly address it, I don't look as dark as the rest of people who would be considered people of color, usually. I am half Japanese, half white, and then that's about all I'm saying on that.
Alissa and I met when we were QA testers, which is quality assurance testers, in the video game industry. We worked there over at Little Orbit testing like licensed games, intellectual property games, things like Barbie and How to Train Your Dragon and stuff like that. So we were QA testers together, and unfortunately the company that we worked at closed down, which we know tends to happen every once in a while. And from there we went our separate ways while still being like best friends.
Yeah, basically. We still talk to a lot of the people that used to work there and have worked with some of them again, or she has.
Yes. And then Alissa and Kimleigh met.
Yeah, we met. I actually was at one of her shows. She's an actor in theater as well, and I went to one of her shows. Met her there, found out she did voices for video games. I'm like, that's cool. And then we invited her to this panel because we're like, that's awesome. Why don't you tell people about that? Because I know nothing about doing voices in video games. So yeah, that's how she came here.
We want to kind of start off with like one of the things that people fear about getting into the video game industry, and that it can be unstable. A lot of them are pretty project-based, and once a project is done, they kind of go, okay, well, we don't need our team, and they kind of let people go, and it feels really scary. But although this may happen every once in a while, I think one of the biggest things to do to stay in the game industry is kind of build up your connections, to make friends, and establish a network of people.
Yeah, and it's also like a small industry. People know, like everyone kind of knows everyone. So like she was saying, like make friends, network with the people that you're with, because sometimes people will be like, hey, I need a designer for this. Do you know anyone? It's like, oh yeah, Alissa's a game designer. Maybe she'd be good for your project. Or hey, I need a producer for this. Do you know anyone? Oh, Cheyenne's a good producer. Maybe, or Cheyenne was a good QA tester, even like, back in the day. Maybe she'd be a good producer too. And then Kimleigh, I'm sure, has lots of stories.
Yeah, it's interesting, though, because it's unstable in their worlds, but as a voice actor, we get to cross the board for every video game. So though these two companies are different, I can work for any company because I'm an independent contractor. I can work with anybody. I get to make those connections. And just to piggyback off of connections, this world, and especially in the voice actor world, is a very small world. There have not been a lot of people of color in this business. I got super lucky with an agent right off the bat because I was a black woman. So that was super exciting, but they need those voices represented. So I was in the right place at the right time. But the good news is once you're good and people establish you as good, they'll call you in over and over again. Like Blizzard will call me in and this person will call me in, but I've worked for them repeatedly because I'm trustworthy, I show up on time, I do a great job, and they know that I'm enjoyable to work with. And that is kind of the four staples of what you want to do in this business, is to continue to be open to whatever they give you. You're like, you want me to do that voice? Cool. You want me to do that? To be very flexible. And so it's a little bit different in this side as far as unstable, as long as you're good, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're not, then they're going to be like, oh, we can't work with them again. So it's, work hard, play hard, have a great time doing it, and people will always remember you.
Yeah, I know that the way that I got to where I am today, I went to the Art Institute for Game Art and Design. one of my friends was working at the QA company that I started off at, but she also went to school with me. So she's like, hey, we're hiring over here. Are you interested in being in QA? And I'm like, yes, please. So I hopped over there, and then I went to Outright Games, which is a publishing company that does licensed games as well. And one of my friends who worked at Little Orbit was like, hey, we're hiring an assistant producer. Are you interested in kind of hopping over into something like that? Because I know you're more on the art side. And I was like, you know what? I'm currently a graphic designer at a print shop, so video games is fun. That's definitely somewhere I want to go. So went over to Outright Games, started as an assistant producer. After a few months, I became an associate producer and then, a producer. And while I was interviewing at Disney, I was kind of like, this is the first job that I've had where I didn't know someone, and someone didn't go, hey, want to come over here? We're hiring, and I know you. I'll put your resume in front of someone. Turns out the executive producer and a producer 3 at the company had worked with me when I was at Outright Games on an Ice Age project, and they worked for FX, and Disney bought FX. So they were like, actually, we know you from working with you on a previous project, and I have no idea if that helped me to get the job at Disney. Maybe it did, because there was a kind of like, yeah, we know her work ethic, we know people who've worked with her, we've worked with her, and making sure that you work hard, like Kimleigh said,
Yeah.
and you're very personable, you make friends, and if you can, keep connected with people, even if it's like, hey, I saw you got a new job, congratulations, because you're on LinkedIn. It helps people to like remember you and to build that fondness, whether they know it or not. And yeah, so I got the job as a producer 1 at Disney in January, and that's super exciting.
In that reality of like keeping connected, like one of my dearest friends that we did on-camera work together forever in Chicago moved out to LA and started doing voiceovers nonstop. She's like the voice of the Emmys and the Grammys and the Oscars. And when I got out here, I was just doing commercial work, and she was like, you gotta get into voiceover. You'd love it, they'll love you. And so I got a voiceover demo, and I was like, now what do I do? And she's like, girl, I'm gonna hook you up with my agent. And that's, like I said, I got lucky with an agent, is because we had worked together before. She loved working with me. She hooked me up with their agent at Atlas. And literally, I started booking jobs before she even had met me at the agency, just off of my demo reel. Do you know what I mean? So like my demo was really good, and it was high quality, and they needed me. And so I literally was with this agency before I even met the woman who runs my whole business now. So it again comes by those connections. My friend was kind enough to pass me along, and I pass people along to them as well, just because that's how I got in there. So why not lift somebody else up while I have the opportunity to do so?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, similar to Cheyenne's story, like after Little Orbit closed, I was looking for a place to work, and I actually got put on a list of QA testers that because like the place that I went to was called Big Red Button, and the producer there was like, hey, do you know anyone who's good at QA to my old producer at Little Orbit? And he made a short list of names, and I was the first person to respond to the email, so they needed someone as soon as humanly possible, so I got that job, and then I bugged them every day for like 6 months that I wanted to do design, and then they're like, okay, fine, here, do this. And then they're like, oh wow, you're actually good at this. Yeah, let's make you be a designer. So that's how I got it, bugging people and just working really hard every day and making sure that I would get on that short list to begin with, and continuing to work really hard to make sure that in the future I stay on those short lists. And I think that's what we're all kind of saying, is always show up, always give your 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially people of color. We already know that we got to work a little extra harder, and females have to work a little extra harder. So my mom told me years ago, give 100 for 50% when everybody else is giving 80, and you will always shine, and you will always continue to work. So that is the motto that I live by, is giving over giving.
Yeah. The next thing we're talking about is, what are some of the experiences you've had where friendships or networks have impacted your personal careers, professional careers, my bad.
So one, I think, we discussed how the positives of it, right? And we kind of wanted to discuss the negatives as well, just because it's we're women of color in the video game industry, which has a lot of, older white men, which is because they're the ones who were in it a lot at the very beginning and have stayed there and created it as it is today. So it might not be a place that is as it's not that it's not welcoming, because I've never felt unwelcome.
Unwelcome either, but it is a boys' club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And boys joke, or guys, men, joke,
Yeah.
and we joke, and it's just like we want to make sure that people know that, yeah, sure, it happens sometimes, but I think in those situations, it's kind of like they're just joking, and they don't usually mean to say anything that's offensive. They're just saying what comes to mind, and we all play video games, and maybe our social skills aren't as good as they should be.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm perfectly social. I have a natural 20 charisma.
Yeah, so I know I'm like, oh, we had so many nerves before coming up here, but we're gonna do it anyway because, yeah, anyway. So basically, people don't mean to say things that are offensive. They just say whatever comes to mind, and sometimes it's like not okay, and it's just really important to go, hey guys, this is not something that you should be saying. You could say it hurt my feelings. You could say it's not okay. And I think if you're able to say why, that'll really help them to kind of go, oh, even if they might be like, oh, well, that's not what I meant, or like, oh, I was actually trying to say this because that's happened to me in the past. And they come back, even if it's a week or two later, a month later, and you realize that their language has changed, or sometimes they'll go, hey, I'm sorry I offended you. I really didn't mean to do that. And that changes the environment for yourself and for others in the future that come up behind us.
Sometimes it is exhausting to repeat, like, hey, that's not cool for this reason. And sometimes you see it happening to someone else in the office. And that's when if you see something, say something really comes in, and you can be like, hey, dude, that's not cool. And just stick up for your coworkers, because sometimes they can't anymore. Or sometimes you can't anymore, and you want someone to be like, hey, dude, that's not cool. And sometimes that's all it takes.
Those allies are important.
100%. Like, yeah, this is where being an ally, like, thank you. It's happened for me. I think it's happened for you, Cheyenne, as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's happened for you. I'm sure.
Well, it's different. Like I said, they're both in a corporate world, so every place I go is something new. And because we're kind of in the new world of #MeToo and women's rights and really trying to stand up for ourselves, people are much more careful than they used to be. But part of our jobs as women of color, is to really educate. And though we have been doing this since before Christ, excuse my language, from way back when, it is still our jobs, because hopefully someday we get a chance to change the way the world sees things, and that's why it's so important for us to be a part of these communities. And again, it is different. Every set I go on, whether it's TV, film, or commercial, or VO, I got a new set of people that I've got to suss out, see how they are, see how they respond to me, and how I respond to them, right? We can't control anything but how we react to things. People can say things to us and we're like, what? Or people can say something, go, okay. Like Cheyenne said, that's really not cool, let me tell you why, and then go, oh, I didn't even see it that way. So always, again, if you're showing up 150%, you're going to respond in the right way, and you're going to help somebody not do that again to somebody else. And that's kind of the business, is really sussing out every opportunity that you have and showing up the best that you can in your most authentic, awesome self.
Our awesome selves and what we do. So while that does happen every once in a while, overall, it's not that often. And I know that other people have different experiences. Ours overall have been like, yeah, we're like, yes,
lucky.
We love what we do, right? And so this is where we kind of want to, talk about our favorite parts of the jobs that we've had over the years.
From day to day, I write a lot of documents, actually, to describe like how the game is going to work, what the game is going to do, like how high are you going to jump, how much damage does this gun deal, how much ammunition can you have, like how many throughout the level, like how many ammo packs are there going to be, how much more damage does a headshot do versus a body shot. There's a good amount of math actually that's involved with what I do, and a good amount of like technical writing skills, because I need to get those ideas across over to the programmers, and the programmers from there need to be able to see exactly what to do in order to actually put those programs in. Sometimes I'm able to also go into the game and do early prototypes, so I can open up the editor and put in an early version of what the game is going to be like, and we can start testing it and getting a feel for it and starting to play test things and being like, oh, this is fun, or oh, this is really not fun. And another thing that I need to do is have really thick skin and not fall in love with my ideas, because a lot of times that idea isn't going to work. It's not going to work with the overall game. It's not going to work with the director's vision. It's not going to work with X, Y, Z. It's not going to work with the art. There's so many things that it couldn't work with, or just not being fun. I could like, hey, let's try this. Oh, I hate everything about that. Let's not do that. And that happens a lot. But it also, when everything like comes out and like is finished and is like really cool and like meshes well together, you're like, oh my gosh, look at this product, this is great, I love everything about this. And then like I love the things, like my favorite thing is actually watching people play the finished product of the game on Twitch. And that may sound like super, super self-centered, but like it's so cool, because it's just like if I made a puzzle and it's just like watching them solve it and then talking about like, oh, maybe we could do this. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. That's so cool, and stuff like that. It's really, really fun to see those reactions and watch people play and like that sort of thing.
My favorite things are like I got to do. So when I was a game publisher, we made this game called Troll Hunters, and it's based off of a Netflix show. And basically, one of the producers on the team who developed the game, Way Forward, he was a USC guest lecturer, or USC professor, right? And we were in a meeting, and he's like, you know what, Cheyenne, I would really like it if you could be a guest lecturer at USC, because a lot of the people that we do have are usually older people who have been in the industry forever, right? And the students don't feel like they can see themselves in that position. They're so high up, and it just feels unattainable. It's like, you're like an AP here, so you're still kind of starting off, and I think that if you spoke to them, they could identify more with you. And I was like, I'm not very good at talking to people. So they all laughed, and there was actually a QA tester there, and he was a black man, and he's like, you know what, the reason why I'm in video games is because I want to be able to make games where I see myself. And I was like, wow, I never really thought about it, and he's absolutely right. And if I can help people who look like me feel like they see themselves in things more often, then, I mean, that just brings so much more worth to what I do. So I decided to do it, and so I've done that a couple of times, which I had no clue is like anything I would be a part of, you know, growing up. I was never like, I'm gonna be a professor, a guest lecturer, or even a panelist at Comic-Con, right? And thank you. Yeah, and I mean, as someone who was always told growing up, oh, you're shy, you won't be shy when we're done, you know, at the end of the class, you'll be able to talk in front of everyone, right? I'm just like, it's not really a goal of mine, but I understand where you're coming from. So like, you know, just being in the game industry, period, has done that for me, and it's not a path that I ever, you know, saw. And I think that's the thing about video games is there's so many different roles that you could take on, and they can give you so many different opportunities that you never thought of, and it's making games sometimes, it's just what you love to do, period. So you're just happy and you're proud, and you're learning and growing and making connections with people who you love, and they're just like you, and you have so much in common. Then also, like, there's a fact that now I'm working at Disney, and my favorite video game is Kingdom Hearts, and I've loved Kingdom Hearts since it very first came out. I remember in middle school walking down the sidewalk thinking, like, oh, one day I'm going to get that video game, and I'm going to play it, and I did, and I loved it, and I'm obsessed with it. So I'm working at Disney, and my first week on the job, like, I sat in a Zoom call with people who produced the Kingdom Hearts games. My VP of games worked on one of the Kingdom Hearts games. Like, I told them, like, oh, here's my bio, and they're like, oh, you know, Sonoko and Adam are producers of Kingdom Hearts, and I was like, oh, okay, that's that's great, thank you. And then Sunoco at the end of the call was like, okay, Cheyenne, we'll have to talk about that barrel you want to make one day. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I am so close to accomplishing and achieving my dreams. So like, it's possible for like anyone, no matter what path you take.
I am going to tell you guys a huge secret. I don't even play video games. It's true. And it's not because, I played like Miss Pac-Man, I'll date myself. Yeah, I played all those games, but like, I don't play any of these. Half the ones I go in for, I don't even know what they are. I have to call a friend and be like, what's this game I'm doing today? And they'll tell me, like, I have no clue at all about video games. But what I love to do and what I love about this job is I'm a huge people person. So I love meeting new people. So for me, my job gets to take me everywhere, meeting all these different people. And I love to tell a story. And it doesn't matter if I'm doing a commercial or TV or video game, every single one of them is a story that needs to be told, and I get to be one of the voices to be able to help that story along, and that's my jam. That's where I live. That's where my happy place is. I love going in and having the director up here, and I'm here at my microphone, and I've got my script in front of me, and he and I are collaborating, or she and I are collaborating, and we're bringing these characters to life. Like, I've had the opportunity to work on some pretty big, huge games. I've got a big secret one right now. I get to go do motion cap for and PCAP for, which is like performance capture and motion capture, if you don't know. So the people that are in the video games, I actually get to be one of those people. And it's so fun. So for me, the joy is taking somebody's idea and bringing it to life. As an artist, that's our job. Our job is to make the story the most bad, I was gonna say a bad word, but I'm not gonna, the most bad but one ever. This is a PG audience, I apologize. My job gets to be bringing it to life, and a video game is just a video game without us, because you guys got to have them bring to life, right? A script is just a script without the actor bringing it to life, because then it's just a piece of paper on the thing. But a film can't be a film with all of us, without all of us collaborating. From director to writer to creator to producers, all of us come together to make something really cool. So that's my jam. Yeah, that's where I live. I love it.
So we kind of want to explain a little bit about the different types of video game studios, because there's a few, and I had no idea going in. So for one, there's the development studio who creates the game. They're the ones who do like the programming, who make the characters, all of the art, all of the, animations, stuff like that. And then there's the publishing company who kind of goes, we want to make a game, we have money for a game, but we can't build it ourselves, and we don't even have a license that we want to use, but we will go ahead and put it through ratings, we'll hire like the voice actors, we'll basically be the middleman between the developers and the licensors. And so then the licensors are companies, like Disney or Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, DreamWorks, stuff like that, who own the IP and who want to make sure their brand is properly represented and, looks beautiful and makes sure that everything is up to the standard that all of their viewers and fans love. So basically, the publisher is the middleman between the two, and they all work together to create what we see on the shelves. And sometimes there are companies that do all three, like Nintendo. They make their own IP, they build their own games, and then they publish them as well. And they also have the Switch and the Wii and all of that, so they even have their own consoles.
First party,
so they're first party, yes. But we'll have Alissa talk a little bit more about what the development side does.
Yeah, so I mentioned a little bit what I do as a designer, but that's not all what a developer does. That also has programmers and your artists. They're, like she was saying, they're basically what you think of when you're like, oh, they're the people that create a video game. There's so much more without the beautiful other people on this panel. It would be a great game that no one ever would see. But so yeah, the developers a lot of times. We are told hey, this is the IP that you're doing, pitch us a game. So people like me sit in a room and we type out a document and then we make it into a PowerPoint and I give that to someone who makes things pretty. And then they pitch it to the publishers, which they do, like she was saying, the middleman stuff. So as a designer, I do work really closely with artists and I work really closely with programmers, and it's sometimes said that a designer kind of is the bridge between the artist's brain and the more technical my brain died. The programmer brain, because like sometimes artists and programmers don't really communicate with each other the same way, and they don't use like the same language for a lot of things. That's why tech artists are so valuable for companies in general. But yeah, so like I was saying before, it's a lot of document writing, a lot of like, there's a bunch of different sections of design. So there's like the paper design, there's also the, my brain, come on, we can do this.
I believe in you,
can do it,
Twinsy.
yes.
Yes, right. There's technical design, which is the people who actually are working in the editor. There's narrative design, which are the people who write the script. There's sound design, which people who make all the sounds that go into the games. There's systems design, which you do a lot of like spreadsheets, and you're working with a lot of the numbers and all of the systems that like create game loops and stuff like that. And sometimes, like especially at smaller companies where I've worked, you do all of it, and that's like a general designer. So I've done all of the things that I've listed are things that I've had to do. And being flexible to doing those things is really important, especially at a company where they don't have necessarily the budget to have 12 designers on a team that each have a very specialized task. So even just being willing to do all of the other things, being willing to like learn how to do all of those things on the fly and do all the research for that is a really valuable asset if you want to go into game design or game development. And just finding something that you want to do, because like we have a lot of different backgrounds here, we have a lot of different things that we focus on, and you can do a lot of different things while working on games. Like we need game studios, we need IT people, we need marketing people, we need HR people, we need everything that no matter what your job is right now, you have a skill that would be good for the game industry. So if this is something that you want to do, like do it. You can.
We need lawyers too.
Yeah, we need lawyers too. We need a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm just like, what are all of the things? There's so many story writers.
Yes,
and
yeah, like even if you don't consider yourself creative, I've worked with people, they're like, I'm not creative at all, and I'm like, I don't believe you. But you can still do stuff like that, yeah.
And then I'll talk about like the publishing and the licensing side, because that's what I've done as a producer. And so as a publisher, we go, okay, biz dev team, which is another job you could do, business development, right? They make sure to build the partnerships with like Disney and Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, and they go, we need a license to buy, and we need to know what you guys are selling. So the biz dev team goes over there, they pick out this precious gem and bring it back to us. We take this gem and we go, hey, developers like Alissa, we need to create this game over here. Can you please create a document, like a pitch doc, and and we will decide if we like it or not. And it's like, yes, this is the one we want. And then we go, hey, first licensors, this is what we've got. Licensors go, check, that looks good, let's move forward. Once that's been decided on, we come up with like a milestone, which is like maybe first playable, so like does it look good? Vertical slice, like this is how it's going to look when we play it, but it's only a little tiny slice of the game. Then we come up with like alpha, beta, when we're gonna do first party submissions and
then we crunch to meet those deadlines.
we work with you to create them, okay? We don't just do it on our own.
Not all companies crunch. By the way, not all companies crunch. That is a question that I always ask at interviews, and I don't work with companies that are crunch-based because I see that as poor planning on the development's team. But like some people like crunch time, which is strange to me, but some people actually enjoy that. They're like, yeah, we can get focused. Anyway, back to Cheyenne. Sorry about that.
No problem. That's a very good point. You want to know what the environment is before you get into the company.
Yeah.
And so basically we figure out when we're going to do submissions for ratings, which is like rated E for everyone, which is ESRB, and then USK is in Germany and PEGI is in Europe, so each country has their own like ratings board. And then first party submissions at the very end, we go, here's the whole game we've created. First party is Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, etc. We go, here's our game. Please tell us that it matches all of your standards and we can release it. And then the marketing team, which we've mentioned marketing as well as another role, goes ahead and makes all of the ads and runs them by us. And so that's pretty much the publisher's kind of job. And then on the licensing side, there's, what is it called? We basically, you go, here's what we have, and here are our standards. We want to make sure that all of the assets look how they're supposed to, so the character's eyes are the right shade of green or blue for the skin, and and stuff like that. And basically, they're like a check. This looks good. The story matches. The names sound like they fit in the world, and stuff like that. And hopping back over briefly to the publishing side, one of the roles that we may have, or even development may have, is hiring a voice actress to do the voices.
So are we talking the day in a life? So the great thing about this, okay, so I'm going to act like nobody's ever done this before, and if you have, please know that I'm not trying to talk down to you. But like, say you've never done this before, and you really, really want to be a voice actor. As an actor, it was easy for me to fall into this business because I know how to pick up a script and read it and bring it to life, right? If you're not an actor, one of the first things that you would want to do is try to find somebody to help you kind of learn that skill. Then you're going to want to get a voiceover demo, and then you're going to want to get an agent. And even if you don't have an agent and you've never had any experience at all, there's still a couple of different websites where you can start learning how to do voiceover and can do auditions. For us, I guess the biggest thing is being able to be seen for auditions so that you can actually book the job. Now, booking the job means you've had the audition, they love you, she picked me, and now we're gonna go to the table and make this happen. So it really comes down to, I was talking about this with the girls a while back ago about like having an agent or not having an agent, being SAG or not being SAG. That would be being union or not union, right? Payment is different when you're SAG. There's a little bit of protection when you're a member of the union because they want to make sure that you don't get taken advantage of as an artist. And when you're non-union, sometimes you can get taken advantage of because they'll make you work 18 hours for $200. And you're like, oh my God, I made $200. But legally, you're not supposed to work that long. So you want to set yourself up for success. And the biggest thing is knowing what you're doing when you go in. Now, that doesn't mean I know everything I'm doing. I had never done performance capture before, so I had to learn it on the fly, right? But I was flexible enough to go, okay, put these little prods on me, and I'm going to do this, and it's going to be awesome. So there's a bit of flexibility as a voice artist because if I just go straight to booking and I didn't even have to have the audition, then I go in there and they're like, these are the 4 characters that I want you to play, go. What if you did this one like this one like this one like this? We want an accent on this one, we don't want an accent. Can you do a Jamaican accent? Can you do this? And then I'm on the fly bringing them to life however I want it. So
I've gotta mention, because the development company has been, here are the actors that we want to go with. And then I get this like demo or like audition tape.
We call it a demo reel.
Demo reel. And it's like, someone has like a German accent and is like strict. And then there's like this character that's like really happy and sweet. And like, if you have like this range, it really helps me to kind of go, okay, I think this person could be these 3 characters. And if you're part of SAG-AFTRA, you can only do a maximum of 3 characters because they're making sure that you're protected.
You're protected, yes. And that you're not working so hard, or there's a lot of things where you have to scream in video games and they're like, please be aware that you're screaming, but we will have breaks in between so that you make sure you rest your voice. And back to what she's saying, so in that demo reel, you want to express as many as you can in a short amount of time because they don't want to listen to a 3-hour demo. I can do all these things, look what I can do, but they'll listen to a good minute to a minute and a half without getting annoyed. So you want to show your range within that minute and a half. And you want to have different ones. So you want to have one that is just for commercial work, you want to have one for animation, and you want to have one for video games. Now, I didn't have all that, but I got super lucky with a really great agent. And so I've been able to do a lot of stuff that I hadn't really planned on doing because I was like, oh, I'll just do commercial voiceovers. But because my voice was good, I was able to kind of bleed into the other parts of the industry. So the big thing is like Cheyenne said, when you are prepared, it makes their job easier because they're listening to probably what? How many of you guys listen to
I don't
for
know,
one?
At least 3 per. Well,
Yeah.
that was when I did My Little Pony. I personally had to listen to like 3 to 5.
And I guarantee you there was probably about 50 people that were submitted that were then narrowed down to the 3 to 5.
Right.
So somebody listens to the big group, which is like every agent in Los Angeles or wherever sends in their talent that they think are good for that role. So my agent will then send me an email saying, hey, Kimleigh, they want you to audition for this awesome video game. This is your character description. She's, 30 to 50s, African American, or I'll be 30 to 50, any kind of woman, any ethnicity. It depends, and that breakdown gives me the information I need to go, okay, so I'm playing My Little Pony. She's 3 years old. What is that voice going to sound like? Hey, I'm a little pony, whatever, right? Like it's going to be whatever you create. And the great thing about this business is every single one of us brings something different to the game. Right? You don't have to be anything. The thing I love about this business is I don't have to worry about how much I weigh, what I look like. If I fart in the booth, nobody cares. Like, seriously, like, nobody cares as long as you bring it to the table. So I get to go in kind of looking like this. I don't have to worry about makeup. I don't have to worry about getting my hair did. All I get to do is show up and have fun. And that's why this business is really awesome. It doesn't matter even what age you are, because my one friend who helped me with my demo, she's a big VO person, she literally only does baby voices. And she's like 65 years old, and all she does, like she's on a video game right now, or not a video, an animated series, where she did 7 different little babies, and then they had to do boy babies, and then you had to do, you know what I mean? Like, if you look at these artists that are very well-known VO artists, they don't ever look like what their voices sound like. Like,
Right.
You can look at any of the video games and you have no idea. My first big video game, I had to do a Jamaican accent, and I have a terrible, terrible Jamaican accent. So I said to my agent, I was like, there is no way I'm doing this, because there's no way I'm gonna get it. She goes, just audition. And I'm literally, this is how I sound. First we're gonna get you, then we're gonna bring you down to die. I wish I was kidding, but that's as good as it was gonna get. And I was laughing, like I have it saved, because I was like, there is no way I'm getting it. But I got it, because the first me gonna kill you, then me gonna bring you down to die. So I sound like a black pirate, I know. So literally, it turns out that in this video game, and I can tell you this one, it's World of Warcraft. So in this video game, the first person they cast for this group of characters had that bad accent. So anybody that they cast after that had to have that bad accent. So as long as you had the bad accent, you were gonna get the job. And so I got the job, and I still to this day laugh, because the first person, this was like back when World of Warcraft first started, had this horrible accent, and so I fit right in. So again, you never know, and you don't want to talk yourself out of anything, because you don't know what they're looking for to make this happen. So I don't know if that was all, yeah. That's our side. Our side is, I think we're all having fun in our own way, right? Like, they're nerds about this thing. I'm a nerd about this thing. You know what I mean? Like, we all have our nerdism, and that's why this world is so much fun, is because you can let your freak flag fly and nobody judges you for it. And that's the joy of this video game business, is that it's fun. You guys have fun playing it. We have fun making it. Ooh, we got 10 minutes.
Yes, I know. I'm like, I don't know. Okay, let's see if we could kind of go over this point really fast, or not fast, because I know we might have a couple of questions. So basically, having people in the video game industry who look like us, not just women, not just people of color, but people who are LGBTQIA+, want to get all of those letters in there, and people with disabilities and stuff like that. We just want to make sure that everyone sees themselves, because I know growing up that's not what we've always had, and I know it's coming out more and more and more that we're being represented, but like, by having us there, by having you guys there in the video game industry, you guys add that diversity, and even by being an ally, you guys add that diversity and make sure that people who aren't there are seen as well. So that's really why we're having this panel, is because we want everyone, we want those kids that we were when we were kids to play a video game and go, that character looks like me. Or to be like, I can custom make this character and it looks like me. So like, it's absolutely working.
For sure, because like
Slowly but surely.
yeah, like she was saying when we were kids, I don't think any of us here look like Princess Peach, but that was like the only character that was a girl that was in games in like the 90s. So, I mean, there's Samus too, but I don't look like her either.
And none of us look like Miss Pac-Man. I'm just saying. So, calm down.
Are you kidding? I look exactly. Sorry. Are we?
Oh, yeah.
Are we ready for questions?
Yeah, let's hop over to questions. So thank you so much. That's what the board says. Yeah.
So I'm going to be teaching an investigating careers in computer science class in the fall to sixth graders. And I was wondering what kind of resources do you know that are out there to like connect me with people like you to like maybe zoom in and talk to my kids, because I really want to talk about diversity and representation a lot this year, because the kids that are signing up for the course, the kids that I want to sign up for the course. So do you know what kind of, if there's any resources out
I mean, you
there?
could talk to us directly.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But there are, I know
Like
that
women in
There's women in
games.
games. There's
Women in the game industry, Wiggy.
Wiggy, W-I-G-I. It's Women in Game Industry. It's a organization that's like for women in the video game industry, and they're pretty active actually. So that's one of them if you want to reach out. But it's not really color diversity or
Women.
I think it's just women diversity, just not like color or differently abled
All the
anything.
girls signed up for the design classes. I'm like, no, you need to be in the
Yeah.
And we put our email
Yeah, we put our
address up
email
there,
address
even
if
though
you
it's on
wanna
2 lines,
contact us,
like people who don't know graphic design, even though I'm a graphic designer. I put our email address on 2 lines, womenscolorcode@gmail.com. We're also like on Instagram and stuff, so you guys, we're more than happy to have anyone, reach out to us.
Is there like a centralized resource for like new executive positions? Because like I always see like ads or whatever on the internet, but it always seems like it's like a scam.
I know that one of the more recent companies that I worked for, it was Keyword Studios. They have a lot of QA testers across the world, I believe. As far as a centralized location to actually find QA testers, I don't think that there is one that I know of. I just look up the area that I was in. When I did it, I didn't have any idea that making video games was a real job. And my mom was like, hey, why don't you just like look up entry-level video game stuff? So that's what I did, and it was like QA, and I just looked at all of the studios in my area and applied to each and every one of them, and one of them called me back.
Yeah, I think that may be the best way to go about it, because different studios do different things. Some studios, like I'm working currently with Ubisoft, and they have to go directly to Disney and go, we have all of these security measures in place, like they can only have people that they hire in directly. And when we worked at Little Orbit, which was a publishing company, they had their own QA team. Some places outsource it. So when there's different outsourced companies that only do game testing. So I would just Google it and look at what's in your area, and like Alissa says, just apply that way.
Yeah, look
At the
look
actual
at the
companies.
website. Like, look
Correct.
up all of the companies in your area, then go to their website in their careers section and look at for QA positions.
Yeah.
That's the best way it's labor intensive, but that's the best way that I can say that we'll actually see it. So yeah, and you can guarantee that they're actually hiring then. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, in your experience, do you get called for positions of color only, or is it a thing that happens, you get all kinds of offers, and how do you feel about that?
For Kimleigh. I get it for anything across the board. So I can play, like, you're a snake. They don't really care. You know what I mean? So, like, there's different opportunities. And for me, I love the different opportunities. Like, for me, I want to do as much fun stuff as I possibly can. Yeah, there's specific things that meet my category, and there's many more that don't, let me just put it that way. And like we were saying about how important it is to be represented in this, the business started to realize that as well, which is why it's a really great time for women, it's a really great time for women of color right now, because, and men of color, because we're not as represented. So this is the time to bump in. If you want it, go get it, because there's so many opportunities. It helps to just bring as much as diversity as I possibly can. So I can do a British accent, I can do, like, there's so many things that I can do, and I put it all in there because I can do that. I was born and raised in Japan, so I got a little bit of that. So I just did a Japanese video game where I had to interpret the Japanese into English. So you want to have as much as you possibly can in your tool belt. That's what I call it, your tool belt. So whenever somebody says they need something, you can just pull it out. And so it's practice, 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 because you don't know what they're going to give you. Just because you're a man, they may want you to play a woman that has a very masculine voice, right? So yes, and I don't get offended by it at all, because to be truthful, the white people, as much as I love my white people, they were doing our voices for a very long time. There was this one girl who was like, I do the best black girl voice in the world, and she was a white girl. So it's gone both ways. So for me, I'm very like, yeah, if they're gonna do me, I'll do them. Sure, I could do white girl. Like, that wasn't white girl, but I could do the white girl, like, whatever, you know what I mean? So you want to be able to do whatever you can, so yes.
I do want to say one thing before we do go, though, and that's like advice, right?
Yes.
I think our biggest piece of advice is to tell people what you want to do.
100%, yes.
Because if you don't tell people, they will not know. It's kind of like if you're not there with your hands free, like, I want food, no one's going to feed you because they're not going to know that you're hungry, right?
Nobody mind reads.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Specifically, when we were hiring at Outright Games for an assistant producer position, my friend was like, hey, why don't we hire Jared? And we're like, sure, let's hire Jared. I went in and called him. I was like, are you interested in this job? And he's like, yes, I'll send you my resume right now. And then I went back in the office and I was like, I just told Jared we're gonna, hire, and he's gonna send me his resume. And my friend was like, I was just kidding. I didn't even know he wanted to do video games anymore. I thought he was happy where he was. And I'm like, oh shoot, like that's really like putting the point across. Like, you need to tell people what you want to do, so that way when that opportunity comes up, you're the first person that they think of. This is also why I tell everyone I want to work on Kingdom Hearts. I'm like, even you guys.
We don't know where you guys are from. And really, like, I'm super to open book, as you can tell. Like, I have no BS. I shoot really straightforward. You can reach out to them if you want any advice or need help or need direction or need somebody to be like, hey, help me find the right person to get a demo. I will love to help you, because I don't like people to spend a lot of money on crap and like not get anything. So I'm really careful of who I send people to. And I like to send people to people who are doing it, so you actually learn from people who actually audition every single day and build. Like, I have a voiceover studio in my house that I had to build. Like, there's things that I got passed down to me that I would love to share with any of you here today, or anybody that you know that wants to do it. Just tell them to call me, because I'm weird that way, and I will help them, I promise. Because there's nothing better than being able to help somebody get their dreams come true, because somebody helped me bring my dreams to life, and every day I help others bring their dreams to life.
And then the final little piece of advice would be interview often, because then when you finally get that interview for that job, like that Disney job that she got, you have all of those jitters out of the way. You kind of know how to interview. You're no longer like, oh my goodness, this is something new and I'm gonna just go stressy an entire box of Oreos. I'm not saying I've done that.
What do they say? Practice makes perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So like, even if you're like, I probably don't want this job, interview for it. Maybe you find out that you do on the way. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
And
guys.
thank you, everyone. You've been amazing.
Thank you, guys.